We live in a republic. We do not live in a system that should give rise to an elected king.
Mondays with Mike.
Mondays with Mike. Mondays with Mike.
I could just intro the next topic. So, there were votes for the House and the Senate. There were attempts by Democrats to pass war powers resolutions, which failed in both chambers. Why did they fail in both chambers? It was pretty close to a vote down party lines. But critically, an authorization of military force has not been passed. Just because of the specific contents of the resolutions that Democrats put forward, just because the specific contents of those resolutions didn't pass, that doesn't mean that Congress has authorized this operation. And my thinking is, there should be an up or down vote on this conflict. And I have many reasons for suggesting why. One, it puts those in Congress on the record. Two, if it does not pass, then this is etched in stone as Trump's expedition. He wants to call it an expedition, fine, call it Trump's expedition. Three, if it does pass, then that's Congress implying that Congress's approval is needed, which is something. Four, it clarifies that a failure to pass a resolution opposing military action does not imply that action is supported. The question that needs to be asked is, do you support this war? And five, I'm just generally tired of congressional deferentiality. Let's put it this way. I highly doubt the Founding Fathers envisioned this version of an imperial presidency. We live in a republic. We do not live in a system that should give rise to an elected king, even a term-limited one. We're too big a country for that. We're too big and important a country with too much of an impact on world history for that to be the case. It's too big to be ruled just by one guy. It's a republic. Time for the representatives to do their jobs. What do you think?
One argument would be it's not just one guy, it's all the millions of people who put him into power. But to your point, the de facto operating procedure right now is actually already a wars power resolution that was passed, which gives the president wide latitude to engage in these kinds of little military conflicts, because there's only two requirements within that war powers resolution that the president actually has to follow. The first is to notify Congress within 48 hours of any kind of use of military force, which the Trump administration did. They sent a notification within 2 days of the attack on Iran. And then the other is that within 60 days, Congress has to authorize the use of military force, or then there has to be withdrawal. And the withdrawal is 30 days after that. So we're still within that 60-day window of the Trump administration being able to engage in military action in the way that it is, I start seeing the argument that there needs to be more of an effort from Congress to authorize the use of military forces if they actually deploy those boots on the ground that are headed towards Iran. So the Marine Expeditionary Force, if that actually gets deployed on the ground, as in the troops like step on Iranian land, then yeah, I do think that Congress needs to weigh in. But in terms of Congress stopping or limiting what Trump is doing right now, there's only a handful of options they have. The first would be to pass a congressional amendment changing Congress's role in terms of war and war making and all that. I don't see that happening. It could happen. I don't see it happening.
Yeah, not with this Congress, given that they already didn't vote for it.
Yeah, exactly. Not with this Congress. The second would be impeachment, right? So if the president's doing something they don't like, they can impeach him, right? If they really don't like it, they can. Congress decides what the high crimes and the misdemeanors are. It's completely at their discretion to define what that means. It really is. If you look at the wording of the Constitution, Congress just decides what a high crime and misdemeanor actually is. And so they could say attacking your country and removing its leader and bombing various places, it doesn't fall within the purview without our explicit consent, so impeach. Again, probably not going to happen. Not with this Congress, not with the political realities of the day. The political climate is such that the Republicans control the House, the Senate. They've got a majority of conservative justices on the Supreme Court, and they hold the presidency. I'm very skeptical, barring some extreme malfeasance on the part of the Trump administration, that they will ever impeach Trump, that they'll just write it out, right? They will just wait until Trump leaves office in 2028, right? Like they will just accept whatever comes their way and deal, right? Adapt and figure it out. If you listen to the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, he was saying this isn't a war. This is just a military operation or engagement or something. Because war has a very specific term. It starts the clock ticking on what they actually have to do. They have to actually work. Oh man. But no, so the third thing they could do, and this one is more likely, is appropriations. So what they could do is cut off the money spigot. Will it happen? Again, I'm skeptical because it's happened in the past and the consequences were not so great. I'm thinking of the Vietnam War in particular. But Congress could, they control the purse. They could technically just stop the money flow completely, right? They have that power to just turn off the spigot. It won't look pretty. We've seen what happens when we don't have enough money to fund things. That leads to a whole different kettle of unintended consequences that I don't think Congress really has the stomach for. Because ultimately, Congress is focused on their political success and futures, and not paying millions of people and losing wars looks worse than paying millions of people and ostensibly maybe not winning wars, but at least keeping the war going. Because perception is everything for these people, and so the perception of capitulating or losing or backing down in any way, shape, or form is way worse for their political careers than just status quo.
Yeah. I'm under no illusions. Let's just put it this way. Trump controls the Republican Party, and the Republican Party controls the government. Like, he doesn't control all the state parties, he doesn't control every apparatus of the party, but in general, he is able to make happen what he wants to happen on a nationwide basis with the Republican Party. He isn't just an executive operating on his own, he's also been an extremely effective politician. I don't think they'll impeach him. I mean, they might. There's a chance Democrats win back the Senate in the upcoming midterms. Even if they do, it's not going to be a huge majority. You need 2/3 of the Senate to remove him from office. Maybe they impeach, maybe not. Point is, he's staying in office. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me just interject there. I do think they should have of that essentially shows what the Republican. I agree with you that there needs to be a record of which of the members of Congress support the ongoing military action and which don't for November, for the midterm elections. So it gives a clear, unambiguous message for voters. This is what you're voting for. If you vote for the Republicans or you vote for specific representatives, it's more war, it's more fighting, it's a lot more money, it's more of this, right? Of the Strait of Hormuz being closed. The Trump administration is clearly resorting to military action as its tool for interacting with the world right now. So this is about getting Congress on the record. Voters being informed is important for getting Congress on the record on this, because the vote is a pretty straightforward one. If you vote for those who are opposed to continuing to fund the war, then we will wind down the war. No money means no planes, no bombs, no ships, no anything, right? Because that's the one leverage that Congress does have, is that they can threaten the money spigot. They can say, we won't fund anything. We won't fund any of your domestic agenda. We won't fund any of what you want to do anywhere in the world if you don't stop doing this. They have that power because it's laid out in the Constitution. Congress controls the purse, period.
Yeah.
So they choose where the money goes and how much is spent. The
Right.
president can say to do something, but if there's no money to do it, can't do it. It's the gas in the tank, right? You can't drive your car if you have no gas in the tank. That's where it does matter. That's where people do have a say. Because if you're looking at viable pathways to actually reduce or limit or stop this conflict, that's it. Congress is the midterms is the most immediate place where this can change in some way. So if the Democrats get a majority in either the House or the Senate, then they can grind everything to a halt. There is no tool to override Congress in this kind of thing. That would open the door for impeachment if Trump tries to do that thing where they take money from one thing that was appropriated and move it to another thing. Rescission? There you go. It's a rescission. Remember his first impeachment where allegedly he tried to threaten the Ukrainian war?
It was Zelensky at the time, yeah.
Yeah, where he tried to threaten Zelensky with the Ukrainian war defense spending that had already been appropriated by Congress unless Zelensky gave the dirt on Joe Biden in Ukraine. If I remember correctly, that was the call, where it's pretty much give me dirt on Joe Biden or no money for the national defense spending that we sent in terms of foreign aid to Ukraine. That the term for that is a rescission, where essentially it would have been a veto on the money that had already been appropriated by Congress, because Congress was the one that decided to send the money to Ukraine. And that's why Pelosi was like, okay, no, and we're going to impeach you. That was the first impeachment. Was
right.
For political reasons, he was trying to stop money that was appropriated to Ukraine from getting to Ukraine. That is something that could happen if Congress comes into power and Trump tries to wiggle around appropriated money or things that Congress passes. That opens the door for impeachment, subpoenas, hearings, and they don't have to impeach Trump. They could just impeach all the different lower rungs of of power below Trump. So they could impeach any number of cabinet officials. They could impeach people in the military if they have to, right? That they could open up investigations and hold people in contempt if they're just not agreeing with what Congress wants, because that's the power that Congress has. It's just a real pity that the American electorate doesn't flex that particular power as much as it could, because it is a system of checks and balances. If you don't have an effective check in place, then you get all these sorts of like weird side adventures that happen, wars of conquest in Middle East.
Quagmire?
Yeah, Quagmire. They called it an excursion or an expedition, not a war. Of Trump essentially just picking and choosing countries he doesn't like and saying, "I'm gonna." Have you ever played the game Risk? You played the game Risk.
We've played the game Risk.
We've played the game Risk.
Yeah, that's a fun game.
It sure is, but in some ways, I'm thinking like someone had him play the game Risk, and he's like, if I just put enough of my troops and my stuff on the country, they just have to give up and I control it.
Maybe that's why he wants Canada and Greenland. He wants the North America 5-army bonus.
When he toppled Maduro, I don't know if he put it or somebody put it on Wikipedia that Trump was now the president of Venezuela. So it's one of those things where, is this just, I know it seems silly, but is this just one of those things where he looks at the map and he sees the parts that are America and the parts that aren't, and he goes, I just want to add more of the parts that are America.
He just wants to paint the map orange. So, zooming out a little bit here, because so it's good to hear, and I believe you, I'm not even going to look it up. No, I'll look it up, but I'm sure you're right, that it's 60 days from whatever, the commencement of hostilities, that there's got to be a vote in favor, and if there isn't a vote in favor, then you got 30 days to wind it down. Given that they didn't vote, Congress, both houses, didn't vote for the war powers to check him, good for our system of government. I'm not saying good for the outcome, I'm just saying what I really care about is like the system of government, that it's doing what it should do. But let's zoom out even from Trump. Think about this. Truman didn't get authorization for the Korean War, according to my research, and I'll research it again before putting it in, because he said it's not a war, it's a police action. Come on, Harry, given that you had MacArthur landing and cutting off the North Koreans, and given that MacArthur, he's like, we should nuke China in order to get them to stop. If it could result in a nuclear war, not that this is going to, but just in general, if it could result in some gigantic conflict, I think you need oversight by more than one branch of government. Let's put it this way. Especially if there's this pattern and history of playing these language games. Like police action, expedition, there's people shooting at each other. Call it a war, call it what you like. We're big and powerful. With great power comes great responsibility. If we're powerful, we need to also be wise. And I'm saying they need greater controls, and Congress needs to step up and improve the law. Is this Congress going to do it? I don't think so, no. The next Congress should, and if they don't, the Congress after them, etc.
Look, the current situation is an expression of the will of the people, right? Because the people in power were elected into that power. If you're opposed in even like a tangential, even like a minimal way of how the Iran war is being conducted or how we got into the war and all that stuff, the only real recourse that the American people have right now is the midterm elections, because that can at least shape the outcome of this. If this conflict is still ongoing come November, who knows? It could end in a week, in a month, in a year. We don't know. Ultimately, the fighting only happens if we keep fighting. Like, Trump, technically, he's right on this one. He has the ability to just stop.
Yeah.
He can tell everybody to just leave. We take what we get. We accept, whatever the reality is going forward. The reality may be that Iran's just weaker, right? That it's not just economically weaker because of the sanctions, but now it's militarily weaker, right? That it lost its missile launchers, it lost its planes, it lost its ships. What's it got left, right? It's got people with guns. Okay, other countries have people with guns?
Yeah, so do we.
But it'll be a tough fight for Iran in any direction if they fight anybody with their guns against the other people's guns, right? That's the status quo. That's not going to change. The only thing that's going to change is whether Iran can operate in a more dramatic way, flexing its muscles, trying to branch out beyond its boundaries. I don't know. Look, part of the issue with Iran is that most of their fighting isn't from Iran's military. It's asymmetric warfare. It's them funding proxies and groups abroad. It's doing all this like subterfuge, all this hidden stuff, this clandestine stuff that it's not so clear the Trump administration's even fighting them on that turf when the FBI fires all the Iran experts, right? If you look at the news a few days before the war, Kash Patel fired like a whole bunch of the Iran counter-terrorism people. What's that about? Was he not told from on high, hey, don't fire the people who might be experts on this country we're about to attack, who could help prevent bad things from happening all around the world? It's that kind of thing, though. It's like, why would you fire your top Iran diplomats, your top Iran spies, your top whoever has the Iran desk, the portfolio or whatever it's called, the file? There you go, the Iran file. Like, you don't want to fire those people. You need somebody who has a nuanced understanding of how Iran's actually operating in the world to combat them in an effective manner. Because, yes, the planes and the bombs and the boats, those are all important conventionally. But Iran doesn't fight in a conventional manner. Iran fights in a very unorthodox and, frankly, mercurial way. They operate from the shadows, the hand in the velvet glove or whatever it's called. I'm trying to think of the term.
James Bond.
I'm actually referring to Mussolini and the way that the Gestapo operated to keep a stranglehold on power. The way Iran fights is in secret. That's why Israel is so effective at fighting Iran, because Israel does a lot of the behind the scenes stuff they do. Do you remember that pager thing they did where they blew up all their pockets with pagers by setting up a fake pager company, and it was completely very effective, but also just completely unorthodox and unpredictable. That's the issue with Iran, is that a lot of the way that Iran fights isn't guns and bombs. It's lone wolf sending people to fight on the streets and in the alleyways and in all sorts of secret ways. And I don't know if the way that this is part of the issue I have. Maybe it's not an issue. Is that a lot of what we know and hear about these conflicts is just what is public reported, but there's a whole secret war going on that we do not know about. We will not know about. We could be winning that war. It's possible, because part of the reason they did the attack when they did is because all of the leadership, you're right, was gathered for the breakfast, and they're like, this is our moment to take out the Supreme Leader, all the upper echelon, to at least limit their leadership capacity. That was a success. It's just the worry I have is it's like Pandora's box. There's what's worse, the devil you know, or the whatever comes after. Because you're right, ISIS came out of the chaos and anarchy of Iraq, and with Saddam Hussein, at least he could be negotiated with, because he had some pragmatic thing that he wanted to maintain his stranglehold on power as a country. ISIS, there was no negotiation. They were an absolute religious sort of theocratic effort. And that's the worry with Iran, is that they may not want to negotiate in the way that is beneficial to the U.S. national security interests, which I understand then why the Trump administration wants a regime change. They want something different. But it's not clear that's going to happen in Iran, that the Iranian people will have something different. Maybe. We'll see. But
we will see. There's a lot we don't know. What gets me about this is it is said that we live in a democratic system. Well, democratic means that people are able to vote for something and get it if they want it, if they think it's best. But if you look at interviews of Trump from before when he was preparing to be a candidate, shortly before that, he would talk about how the U.S. was involved in stupid wars, such as Iraq. And if you look at that and you think, if somebody's a Republican and they don't want to go to a war, who are they going to vote for? They're going to vote for somebody who's a Republican who calls the war stupid. But then he calls it that, he gets power, and oh look, what did they vote for? Well, they probably voted for no stupid wars, but now they got more wars. I don't know.
It's almost like candidate Trump would say anything to get elected, and President Trump no longer is running for office and is actually living his real political practice, whatever those beliefs are. That there's a word for it. It's called puffery. Political puffery is where a candidate says a bunch of stuff. They're like, we're going to bring peace and feed everybody, and we're going to make everything great and wonderful and happy. Vote for me because I'm awesome. And it's not necessarily the case that the things they say through puffery are going to actually happen. Look, part of the problem with that kind of politics is that it's very effective to convince people that you're a snake oil salesman, that you'll be the peace candidate, you'll be the candidate who's going to lower prices and make life easier to live, that you're going to lower the price of housing. You can say anything you want as a candidate. It's up to the American electorate to decide if they're going to believe you. And this is where I am disappointed in the American electorate. Trump was convicted in court by a jury of his peers for fraud. F-R-A-U-D. Fraud. What is the element of fraud? Duplicity. It's lying to people to get them to believe something. Okay? He's a convicted felon for fraud. So don't believe a word he says. Don't believe, he can say until the pigs fly and chickens start singing or something, that he's going to make kumbaya and the world a better place and stop stupid wars. Don't believe him, right? As far as I can tell, he ran for the second term so he wouldn't go to prison. We're left with whatever we've got, that he used every tool at his disposal. He used a celebrity, he used his political acumen, he used the robust social media, he used every element and tool at his disposal to get elected, to persuade people of things. The reality appears to be that he was trying to stay out of prison from those different cases that happened, right? I don't know. Why is the classified documents case sealed for all time? Why is Jack Smith prohibited with a gag order from even talking about anything that he learned from that investigation, that case? What's going on there? Do the American people really not need to know that there was this national security threat, possibly, allegedly? Do we really not need to know that existed in the interim between then and now? Look, we're not going to find out. This is one of those things that, unless there's a Truth and Reconciliation Commission or something after Trump's out of office, where they open the books and they go back and actually investigate what happened to understand better what the real history is of this moment we're in. I'm very curious if any of the classified information that was held onto was used to reduce our ability to gain intel on Iran or these other places in the world right now that we're seeing these issues. Because if we're operating in the world blind, mistakes get made, and big mistakes that could have been remedied by having spies who had answers. And we will not know. We won't know, because this is all under gag order and seal, what the actual damage was, if there was any damage from that information getting out when it did, if it got out, right? This is all ifs and allegations and suppositions, but look, that's the risk when classified material isn't kept under lock and key, is that secret war we're talking about, the one that's happening behind the scenes, the players may get their identities revealed to the other players if that information isn't kept very secure. So that's the whole hidden history of the past, 8 years that we're not going to know. But we see the effects, right? We see the after effects.
Hopefully he's right, and we are able to establish stability there in the next few weeks. That would be, if there's a lot going on we don't know, just let's hopefully get toward peace here.
It's important that the electorate knows what they're voting for. And right. Congress is much more honest in terms of how because they have to vote so often, that you understand better what their positions are on things, because they constantly have to state them.
Objects in space. This was exciting. I was very jazzed. And they mentioned this one, NBC, for 2 sentences. And I just caught it, and I thought, that's like the most important story. Maybe not for this particular time, but this could have planetary impacts. In that it would prevent planetary impacts. Okay, by celestial objects. Okay, a report by the Jet Propulsion Laboratory that NASA had successfully impacted an asteroid, which was in a binary system of asteroids, so both asteroids revolving around a center of gravity between them. A small change to the trajectory of an object in space has big consequences. Now, and this is good, very good, because do you remember that object that in 2032 might have hit us? It was Space Rock 2024 YR4, and apparently it's actually not going to hit us. It's not even going to hit the moon, which they thought it might. Nevertheless, the fact that we are looking to the heavens and making sure that things do not crash into us, and getting technology to prevent against that is a very good thing, don't you think?
I do. No, I think it's a great thing if we can figure out how to actually make it work instead of just facing the consequences of getting hit by a really big rock. If we can just nudge them out of the way, that'd be great.
How big of a breakthrough was DART compared with previous planetary defense concepts?
Oh, it's huge. Nothing quite like it's ever happened before. So it's unprecedented. Our other options have always been really terrible. Blow up a bunch of nukes and have a radiation cloud flying around in space, or do other stuff like have it crash your ship into just really terrible options. This is at least better than those options. One of the other things in the show notes was just what was the biggest meteor or asteroid that hit Earth, and they were big. There's a crater in the Yucatan Peninsula you can see from space. of the asteroid they think killed the dinosaurs, of the non-avian dinosaurs, and it was the size of a city, right? It's several miles wide in diameter, so very big rock, right? Very big. No, there's 3 places on Earth that have huge impact craters. There's one in Canada, there's one in South Africa, and there's the one in the Yucatan, and they're all huge, right? Tens of miles in diameter of the impact crater, just gigantic, earth-shattering rocks. That one of them caused scientists think that it caused a darkness for 10 years and blotted out the sun, killed all plant life, right? It's the fear that we have from nuclear war of like a nuclear winter is the same kind of thing, is that if enough nukes detonate at once, that it'll blot out the sun, it'll kill all life on the surface of the earth. We'd have to become mole people, live underground. Same kind of deal here. The reason that we want to come up with a way to move these giant rocks away from hitting Earth is that if we don't, right, it could kill all life on Earth, or most life on Earth, except for tardigrades, which can survive in extreme. The tardigrades are fascinating because they can survive in extreme cold, extreme heat, extreme levels of all sorts of environmental factors. They're very fascinating creatures. But if we can become tardigrades, maybe we can survive.
And it's not a question of if, but when. So it's a good thing that we're pursuing technology in this direction. Upward. Onward and upward.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Mondays with Mike.